Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to talk about. Of course, the spending bill being turned down. What a day. We're not talking about the same spending bill as yesterday morning. We are talking about a new one that Trump and Musk put the pressure on. Democrats and a few Republicans, which we'll get to a little bit later on, went against the bill. And we'll tell you what Musk had to say and others had to say about that. That, of course, is the big story this morning. Another very big story coming out yesterday. Not a surprise, but frustrating. And that is, and of course, it can't be the media is to blame, but it's from the Wall Street Journal. It's 15 pages long, and it's a fascinating read. And it's how the White House functioned with a diminished Biden in charge. So basically, what we learn in this piece is they were aware of Biden's mental decline on day one, folks. It's an explosive report. We're going to talk about that along with many other issues this morning. But again, the Wall Street Journal's piece, if you have not had a chance to read it, I would highly recommend it. A complicit media covering up for the president's mental decline, and people like, of course, Harris, people like Pelosi, Schumer, covering up what is arguably one of the biggest scandals in presidential history. But before all of that, I received a very nice comment from a viewer yesterday after the program. Frank, I turned 75 on December 21st. So tomorrow, we wish you here at Frankly Speaking a very happy 75th birthday. He or she, I'm not sure, goes on to say, and I finally get a great present in seeing we the people take America back again. The Democrats better get smart and realize that the American people are not stupid. We can read, and no longer will we wait till a bill is passed to see what they are up to. Yes, thank you very much. Again, very happy birthday tomorrow, and thank you for that nice comment. Hey, as we enter, and you heard our festive music to kick off the program, as we near Christmas Day, many of you, unfortunately, like myself, have not prepared all of your shopping. You've not finished all your shopping, whether for the big holiday meal or whether for gifts. Well, on the gifts front, Americans will waste $10.1 billion on unwanted holiday gifts, and 53% of you will get a disappointing present this year. This, according to a personal finance website, more than half of U.S. adults, a whopping 53%, so about 140 million people, will be left disappointed by at least one present they unwrap. That's according to Finder, that's the website. And the lackluster offerings aren't just another pair of socks or a cheap bottle of wine. The average cost Americans will spend on poorly received gifts is estimated at $72 a pop, up from $66 the year prior. So it's not just that pair of socks. I know there was a point to that, but I got to say I like when I get socks. So anyway, at the end of the day, Americans will waste $10.1 billion on unwanted holiday gifts. Those gifts will end up being just thrown somewhere in the house, tossed in the landfill. Approximately 4 in 10 Americans will re-gift what they received, hopefully to someone more grateful. All right, kicking off the holiday message for whatever reason with that. Let's talk. Oh, I also want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm asking some questions early on. One is they're saying the Democrat Party is turning into a Fetterman versus AOC, that there's kind of that split. And I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to hear your thoughts and opinions on that it's a kind of a Fetterman who's been very outspoken on his support for Israel, has said he's willing to hear out Trump's nominees. He's been more receptive to various ideas that maybe Democrats are not championing But having said that, he's still a Democrat at the end of the day. And on the other side of the coin is the AOC, the more far left. Now, she was ousted. Who was it that went after? Somebody on MSNBC went after Nancy Pelosi for trying to quash AOC's bid for that high ranking in that committee. That was interesting. But anyway, they're saying that that's the party now, the Fettermans versus AOC. And then I hear this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. That cancel culture is dead. And I think many may agree with that. I don't know if it's dead. It's maybe dormant. But the mob just hasn't noticed, according to the Telegraph. The end of woke is nigh, they suggest. And a lot of people have pointed to woke culture and DEI culture. There's actually a piece of CNN, but CNN is having so much trouble with the ratings that if you go to their website and click on so many articles, I guess a month, you can't read any more without paying. But they had, and I apparently have done that, they had an article this morning that said Trump may, I'm paraphrasing, but Trump may end DEI, but what that could cost for real Americans. What that is saying is there's big money in those DEI, let's say, just say it, big business. In that business of DEI, college campuses paying so much money to have these DEI officers, if you will, offices, companies, corporations. But I don't accept them at face value that the cancel culture is dead. I think it's very much still there. It's just not as effective as maybe it once was. But what I was saying on this long-winded rant is that I think the DEI and the cancel culture and the woke culture led many people, especially young people, to say, I've had enough. I'm sick of being told how horrible I am and that I should hate myself. And they decided, you know what? Trump and Republicans are offering something different. They're offering peace and prosperity. They're not offering you were born this way, so you're horrible. But continuing, everybody, even Gen Z, but especially Gen Z, seem to have gotten bored with woke culture. Nothing makes art more pointless than an endless list of don'ts, an approved by sociology students tick list. Ancient rules have come back into play as if newly discovered on dusty scrolls of parchment. Like, is this guy actually funny? Can this person act? Is this simply a great song? The evidence is all around. The American comedian Dave Chappelle, canceled for saying gender is a fact back in 2021, was the second highest grossing stand-up to tour last year. And that's not even counting his multi-million-dollar Netflix deal. He was beaten out by Kevin Hart, forced to withdraw from hosting the 2019 Academy Awards after past homophobic tweets were unearthed, and those tweets were from decades earlier. And that was a prime example, like we point to Taylor Swift being forced, and I think she supports the causes, but really being forced or threatened to endorse Harris and to get politically active, because they say if you don't use your soapbox, the silence is violence. So I think Kevin Hart was a fine example of that. Not really a political comic. Then he started to get a little political, and it wasn't enough. And they turned on him and dug up these decades-old tweets. It was really fascinating. And, of course, he's rebounded. But at the time, I thought, this is what happens. You can never, once they smell blood in the water, you can never give them enough. And that's the same with DEI culture. To justify their job, they have to keep looking for more and more wrongs on the college campuses, or more and more wrongs, not in the right way, like, rooting out anti-Semitism. But they've got to find more and more wrongs in culture. And then they go, and I'm not going to go through each individual person, but they even point to like Donald Trump, specifically at that Madison Square Garden rally with that comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe. Remember that joke that was supposed to be the end of Trump's campaign? Well, Latinos voted for Trump in huge numbers. Even in Knife Edge, Pennsylvania, where his Latino vote went up by 15 percentage points from 2020. But that was going to be the end of his career, remember? And they wanted to focus on that laser-like. And then, coming out of nowhere, the president of the United States called Trump supporters garbage, and all was forgotten with Headcliff. And they point to Shane Gillis, who has become extremely popular, and he was ousted from Saturday Night Live for he was on, not even on an episode until later when he became very famous. But he was supposed to be in the cast, and I don't even think he made it past a day, maybe two, because of past podcasts or videos he did with How Dare He comedy in them. Now, that's not a huge evolutionary leap, writes the Telegraph, from the ages of the dinosaurs, the 1970s, when Benny Hill was squinting behind black glasses and a tight suit. But whereas Hill was hooked from British television for being embarrassingly sexist and racist, it says here, Gills now has a popular podcast, is among the most streamed comedians on Netflix, and was even invited back to host on an episode of SNL. So does this signal, and again, they go through many examples of this, and I think it's very interesting that the pendulum has kind of swung. But I think there was so much money involved in woke culture and cancel culture that's why, number one, I don't think it'll go away. But number two, it became very popular. The way to become the most popular, to be the coolest in this culture, was to be the most aggrieved, to be the most offended. And this gets old. Again, it gets old being told you can't laugh at that, you can't enjoy that actor or actress's work, you can't listen to that song. You are horrible because you were born with some type of privilege. And enough was enough. For a short time, cancel culture was effective in calling out those who really deserved it, it says, before it morphed into a poisonous, many-headed hydra that created a climate of fear that permeated everything. Now it seems to be on its way out. It will not be missed. But do you agree with that theory? Now, those are a couple just oddball stories to start off our Friday morning, but I think important stories. I want to talk to you about that. I'm going to talk to you about that Wall Street Journal, that expose about Biden's mental decline and the White House covering it up since day one. That coming up in just a moment. But the spending deal going down in flames, raising difficult questions for Republicans. Oh, and the new trend, if you're wondering, and this is a chicken and the egg thing. Does the media bring up the talking point and then Democrats use it? Or do the Democrats bring up the talking points and the media use it? And I think in this instance, I believe it probably started with the Democrats. And that is that Elon Musk, we should start calling him president. He's the real president. Very reminiscent of Dick Cheney's the one really running the country, not George W. Bush. They thought that was effective at the time, though now they embrace the Cheneys. They love the Cheneys. Interesting. But in this instance, that's their new talking point. I'm going to give you a couple examples of that. But the spending deal did go down in flames. Not the same spending deal that we talked about yesterday morning, all morning long. We'll talk about that when we come back. But I'd love to have you weigh in on all those questions, all those issues of the day. Stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. So the House Republicans are going back to the drawing board after a deal negotiated yesterday failed just hours later. The deal, thrown together during day-long negotiations between different ideological corners of the House Republican Conference and President-elect Donald Trump's team, failed 174 to 236, with one voting present and 20 absences. Yeah, there sounds like there may have been a few that wanted to get home a little early for Christmas. This is the troubling aspect to it. An astonishing 38 Republicans voted against what has been argued as a hastily assembled, though Trump-endorsed deal, with 9 not voting. Now, Trump and Vance stepped up early, and I would love to hear your opinion on this. Do you think this is the Republicans being their own worst enemy? Do you believe it was done because the fast-paced deal may not have been up to snuff? Now, the new deal did, and this could have been one of the reasons why some Republicans didn't want to vote for it, did remove over 1,000 pages of pork and other provisions unrelated to keeping the government open. All those things that we talked about yesterday that were not necessary to keep the government open. As a result, only 2 Democrats supported it, with 1 voting present and 11 not voting. Now, Johnson brought the bill to the floor under suspension. Yes, we are going to talk about Speaker Johnson, as predicted yesterday. It looks like his days of speakership may be over on January 3rd. Perhaps not. Anything can happen. A lot depends on this deal. But having said that, his odds, we'll say, nosedived of being speaker again. It would require 2/3 support to pass it. It did not get even close. Many Republicans who voted no, coming from all corners of the conference, may have felt free to do so because the bill was doomed to failure, or it could have been done in protest of Johnson's handling of the process. Republicans must now decide on a path forward, not only for funding the government, but who can lead them through this and future battles. Republican leadership indicated they would not try to bring the bill through the Rules Committee, which could allow it to come to the floor only needing a simple majority, but the bill did not come close to receiving enough Republican support to achieve that lower bar. Now, leadership did say yesterday no more votes would be taken on Thursday. We'll see. The government will shut down on Saturday if nothing is passed. Negotiations, of course, will continue. Trump's going to come in and hope to salvage the situation, fix the situation. Now, it is rare that so many Republicans did go against Trump's wishes on this. But many are suggesting anyway that it is a protest vote now against Speaker Johnson. And I feel bad in a way because I think Speaker Johnson, you look at his support for Trump during the campaign, doing a fantastic job on the Sunday talk shows where it was essentially a debate. I mean, where the hosts of the show would go after him in very vicious ways. You saw him at that UFC fight with the president and Kid Rock and others. Misguided, though. 2 days ago now, a very misguided spending bill that he put forth, not realizing in many ways that Trump's presidency doesn't start on January 20th. His leadership doesn't start on January 20th. It started on November 5th. And so he was doing things the way they're always done. And I guess you unfortunately can't blame him. He was not in the MAGA mindset, if you will. He was not ready for that early push to right the wrongs of this government, to right the ship. So he was just going to try to get something through. So when Republicans take over in January, that they would have some type of spending plan to put forward, some type of budget put forward. Instead, he was met with a real problem when Republicans and Trump and Musk, head of Doge, saw what they were trying to put through and said this can't happen. Now Democrats are saying, no, we had an agreement, and now you've backed away from that agreement. So we don't have to do anything. It's your fault. The media is going to blame the Republicans for the shutdown. Again, I caution you, do not worry about the government shutdown. It is not the end of the world like the media will tell you. You will notice very little change in your life. You may notice a thing here or there. Maybe some office is closed. You need to call. Maybe, something. I remember there's FCC things in media back in radio that it affected me very little, but it did, it delayed something, just these type of things. But the media is going to pay, and they're going to have those stories of the government employee who most likely gets paid very good money, but living paycheck to paycheck, who now can't, support his family or her family during Christmas. That's what they will show you. Now, I do want to remind you that they will receive back pay when the government opens again. So if, let's say, the government shuts down for a month, when that month is over and the non-essential employees stayed home, took care of chores, had some time off, when the government opens back up, there's that last month's paycheck. So keep that in mind. Now, the House did vote down the bill. According to NBC News, 174 to 235, as I mentioned, with one Democrat voting present, falling far short of the 2/3 majority. So most knew that this was doomed at the start, so they took it, meaning Republicans. So many took it as an opportunity to say, you know what, it's not going to get through anyway, so I want to vote no to show my disdain or my dislike of Speaker Johnson. Rand Paul yesterday saying that Johnson was a weak leader. 38 total Republicans voted against the bill, with conservatives saying it did not substantially reduce federal spending. The rejected measures leave Congress without a clear plan to avoid a looming government shutdown, with less than 30 hours left before the deadline, driving up the odds of a funding lapse just ahead of the holidays. A shutdown is scheduled to begin at 12:01 a.m. Saturday. So there we have some clarification. We've heard some different mixes of what time it actually is. But starting Saturday, the government will be shut down, which is, I guess, if you're going to shut down the government, probably a good time to do it. I can't imagine a lot of work being accomplished in the Christmas week or the New Year's week. Asked by reporters whether a new funding bill will be released today, House Speaker Johnson said we'll see as he left the Capitol late last night. The failed bill, put together by Johnson and other Republican leaders, had Trump's endorsement but faced speedy opposition from Democrat leaders who had not signed off before its release. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called the proposal laughable, as Democrats met privately before the vote. And as seems to be a want of lawmakers to do, you could hear them chanting, which I find very awkward, a very nerdy thing that Washington politicians do, where they'll break into, hey, goodbye, if there's something that, some bill fails sometimes. And very childish, very petty. In this case, they were chanting, I'm going to clean it up, because I know so many young people, before they head to school, watch, frankly speaking, yelling, heck no, chanting it. So chanting is the new, not even that new thing to do in Washington. Yes, that's what you're dealing with Washington, D.C. We've got to take a, short break. And we're going to talk about this, but I'd love to hear your opinion on this continuing resolution. By the way, I spoke yesterday with the former congressman because I wanted to give you that information that I couldn't remember specifically. Former congressman, now Assemblyman-elect, Joe Sempolinski, he was in Washington. He was our congressman for 4 months. Because of that that weird time where Tom Reed resigned and we were waiting for the general election, but we needed someone to represent us in the meantime. So for 4 months, Congressman Joe Sempolinski represented the 23rd Congressional District in Washington. And I wondered in that 4 months how many times, because you wouldn't think it would happen that often, how many times he had to vote for some type of spending bill. Well, he gave me that answer yesterday, and we're going to give it to you when we come back. Stay with us. This is, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're talking about the bill to avert the government shutdown on the eve of the deadline failing. And I talked to the former Congressman, Joe Sempolinski, who was congressman for 4 months. Because I knew there were some votes at the time he was there that were spending votes. So at the end of the day, in 4 months, just to show you this idea of kicking the can down the road, and when people were asking yesterday, why are they doing this around Christmas? They do these things kind of on purpose, hoping that, kind of a bad politician, for lack of a better word, will say, I want to get home. Yeah, sure, I'll vote for it. I want to get out of here early. Or there won't be much of a fight, or they can start saying, well, if the government shuts down, it's Christmas time, think of those workers, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was 100% manufactured, as Vivek Ramaswamy had to say, that this urgency was their own doing. And, they kick the can down the road, and then it's a whole battle again, and will the government shut down? And the media gets on the Democrat side, and et cetera, et cetera. It's really a broken record if you're on the ground, especially. Well, I talked with Joe, and he was in office 4 months. He had to vote on 2 continuing resolutions and 1 omnibus, 3 spending bills, which, don't worry, he voted no on all 3. Too bad they couldn't have snuck 1 more in, 1 for each month. Anyway, Elon Musk is upset over this, and I wanted to warn you because this is going to be the new trend. They are going to say that Elon Musk is the real president. The Democrats started this talking point, and then people like Whoopi Goldberg jumped on it. They think it's hilarious. This is to ignore the fact that Trump has already been president for 4 months. They might have thought that worked when they would always say that Dick Cheney was the real power behind the president. He was the real president. Doesn't work in this scenario, but that does not mean they'll stop trying. It's just like when they say he's going to go after all of his enemies. He's going to lock people up, et cetera, when that's exactly what they attempted to do to him. But Elon Musk, not happy. He was championing this spending bill. 20 lawmakers did not cast a vote on the spending patch. Only 2 Democrats voted in favor of it. And to give credit where credit's due, that was Representative Marie Gluskamp Perez from Washington and Kathy Castor from Florida. They voted in favor of the bill. Representative Marcy Kaptur voted present. The new funding deal would have kept the government's lights on for 3 months, re-upped farm aid, added a 2-year suspension on the debt limit until January 30th of 2027, and replenished $110 billion in disaster relief while cutting out other aspects of the prior deal, like that pork. They actually cut the 1,500 pages down to 116 pages. That's getting more into where it should be. Tech billionaire Elon Musk, he backed the bill, tore into House Democrats, specifically Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, because Hakeem Jeffries, as I said, they were all chanting heck no in the background, him saying that it was laughable. Musk wrote last night on X, a super fair and simple bill was put to a vote, and only 2 Democrats in Congress were in favor. Therefore, responsibility of the shutdown rests squarely on the shoulders of Representative Hakeem Jeffries. And I think they raise a good point, and Musk and Republicans could raise a good point on this. It is now in the Democrats' court. That was a bill, 116 pages, that was very reasonable. But trying to get a dig on Trump, trying to put a negative story on Trump's shoulders this early, they are willing to shut down the government because they know, as many people call them, the handmaidens, in the media will do their dirty work, the Democrats, and say the shutdown was all because of Republicans. But this one's a little bit different than when a shutdown happens before an election, because people will say, well, they're going to blame the Republicans, and they'd probably be out on the streets. They're not going to win re-election. The election's over. This isn't going to have the damage Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats think it does when the media starts saying that the government shutdown is the Republicans' fault. Even though it's not, remember, that landslide victory from Trump, that clear mandate that Trump received in November, this is one of the reasons why he received that mandate. People have had enough of the old way of doing things in Washington. This kick the can down the road. No, don't make the tough decisions. If that means a government shutdown that doesn't affect their life, or if it does very, very, very little, so be it. That's what he was sent to Washington to do. So I think there's a lot of people that see this fight in the continuing resolution, specifically after yesterday when Mike Johnson, who we liked, didn't realize that Trump was hitting the ground running. When he supported that first CR, when Trump stepped in and said, no. That's not how we're doing things anymore. I think there was a lot of people that breathed a sigh of relief saying, it's begun. Here we go. A new era. Democrats wasted little time mobilizing against this spending bill. During a subsequent emergency caucus gathering, chants of heck no were heard from members huddled in the meeting room. Think of that. You're a grown-up getting paid good money to supposedly represent the people that voted for you in Washington. And you think it's clever or cool or cute or whatever to chant when you receive a bill. That to me just seems so childish or so, I think this term's overused, but it kind of makes me cringe. I don't want to belabor this point because it's a very minute point. I mean, it's not really anything to glom onto, but why? Act like you've been there before. Act like the grown-ups in the room. But none of them appeared to have specific grievances. Nope, just the chant. seems about par for the course, doesn't it? Against the content of the bill, which was a watered-down version of what they previously backed. Instead, well, they were probably not happy with getting rid of all that pork, but they were upset that they were left out and alienated. Jeffrey said, the Musk-Johnson proposal is not serious. It's laughable. Extreme MAGA Republicans are driving us to a government shutdown. Wow, a lot of cliches there, huh? Representative Steny Hoyer, who served as the second House Democrat, the number 2 House Democrat, I should say, for more than a decade, raged against President Musk for spiking the prior deal. Just buckle in. This is the new talking point. Really. Elon Musk is the real president, because how dare Trump start a group that's going to try to cut government spending? How dare he? And then that person be outspoken about the waste and fraud in government. So Steny Hoyer and other Democrats, and this is typical in Washington in the media too, they think it's funny. They think it's, wow, that's going to really get to Trump, and that's really showing him. Doesn't mean anything, because obviously Trump had already been president for 4 years. But they think it'll really bother him. And it's really cute to say that. So they start talking about Whoopi Goldberg did it. Those in the media started going, President Musk. Hoyer said they threw out all the provisions that helped working men and women, sick children, farmers, and so many other people who were relying on this to be able to make it in America. Why can't they make it in America, Mr. Hoyer? I mean, you've been in there about 100 years. Have you ever thought about maybe helping Americans before this? Do you notice how he also uses, which is a cliche, but women, working men and women, sick children, farmers? I'm surprised he didn't throw in seniors and veterans, because that's what they'll start to do when the government shutdown kicks in, just so you know, by the way. There was no discussion. This was a take it or leave it situation. No, the 72-hour rule, this is the 72-second rule. They just posted the bill, he said. Other Democrats expressed unity in opposition to the American Relief Act. Some complained about the debt ceiling provision, fretting that Republicans were trying to make it easier to cut taxes when they claimed the trifecta. Pete Aguilar from California said to put this on at this point without consulting us or talking to us is pretty unfortunate. We have a deal. It was a bipartisan deal. They should honor the deal. Let's take a short break. Yeah, it's the earlier deal, the bipartisan deal, and this was Mike Johnson, that unforced error, shooting himself in the foot because he agreed to something that should not have been agreed to. Let's call it out on that 1,500 plus page spending bill with so much pork, so much waste. They pare it down to 116 pages, water it down to 116 pages, and Democrats no longer support it. We'll talk about it here a little bit more. I'm running just a tad bit late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking. For the question from a viewer, more so yesterday, but it's come up this morning a little bit. If the government shuts down, among the impacts, federal employees would be furloughed, okay? But those who are deemed essential will still continue to work, the TSA, air traffic controllers, etc. So that is not part of this as you talk about your holiday travel. Oh, okay, here we go. I just wanted to read this before. First, Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas. I watch you because it's a joke. Democrats are bad and Republicans are good no matter what. Your show is the best comedy show I've ever watched. Well, thank you. There's much better comedy shows. If any Republicans are against Trump, you're done. What? If any Republicans are against Trump, you're done. Okay. I'm a Republican, but I vote for who I think is better. I'm concerned about all the nominations. Trump only wants yes people. I'm saying it nice. Thank you for the comment, viewer. Interesting. I do find it interesting that you put the caveat in there that you are a Republican. I think that's a very good disclaimer that you can use to then badmouth Republicans and Trump. Interesting. Kind of almost a stereotype there, the John McCain the Chris Christie type scenario. I swear I'm a Republican. Okay. Thank you for the comment, though, and Merry Christmas. So we were talking about the spending bill, trying to avoid the shutdown. Now, the original bill, 1,500 pages. That was pared down to about 116 pages. And they opted to fast track that. A lot of Republicans, I should say, voting against the bill in protest because they knew it was already dead in the water, voting against it for a protest vote against Speaker Johnson. I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answer of what will be, what today will look like in Washington. I know there's a lot of representatives wanting to get home for the holidays, and you think of the trouble with air travel as it is. So now looking to leave, today at the earliest, most likely today. How many will actually still be around? They better come up with something fast. And now I'm not going to go through all the things that the first bill had and what the difference is. I know a lot of people, I think what initially got the ball rolling on this and the outrage by the American people, and this happens a lot, is when we learn that they voted themselves in a raise. That never sits well, especially at a time when so many people are struggling. I know the media will tell you you're not struggling. We can go through that as much as you want. But at a time when Americans are struggling, especially in the holiday season, to see politicians, especially with fighting like this going on, receiving an increase in pay. So, should Congress fail to act, the government will enter a partial shutdown after midnight tonight. Any measure to forestall a government shutdown will need to clear the Senate and get President Biden's signature to go into effect. Yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces to get this all in before the government shuts down. But as I said, the new talking point coming from Democrats is that Elon Musk is the real president. This is, oh wow, I just heard the Corning whistle. That means we're late. Well, we'll talk about that because it's getting kind of tedious. But I think when we talk about the chicken and the egg scenario, I do believe this is one that started in Washington with people like Steny Hoyer calling Musk the president and people like Whoopi Goldberg and others finding it funny and running with it. So the media kind of using and pushing the talking points of the Democrat Party. Nothing new. Just put it in your mental bank and we'll think about it in the future about how is it the chicken or the egg? Who's talking to who? All right, let's take that short break because I'm running late. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us this morning as we get ready to enter just a few short days before Christmas. To give you a little bit of a show update, we will be live on Monday. We'll be out Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and back on Friday. So we're going to play some Christmas music on Christmas Eve. We're going to rebroadcast essentially the Salvation Army telethon that was so successful. So you can hear from Santa again. You can hear from the great music of Doc Possum and all of the wonderful songs from Crystal Chords. So that's a little bit of the schedule. We will be hitting the ground running at the beginning of the new year. I am really jam-packed with guests coming up. This is the kind of, well, typically this is the slow season when it comes to news. As you have seen, this is not the typical slow news season. Elon Musk is now being called president as Trump follows in his footsteps on the CR bill, according to Newsweek. Democrats and even some Republicans are calling Elon Musk president after he led the charge against a Republican-backed government funding bill, possibly sending the government into shutdown over the holidays. Lawmakers are lining up to attack Trump and Musk after they came out against a short-term spending compromise orchestrated by Johnson. That's interesting. Think of the loaded language here. A short-term spending compromise. And we talked so much about what was in there that did not in any way, shape, or form have to do with keeping the government open. We talked about the wasteful pork spending. So to suggest that that was a level-headed continuing resolution is really, frankly, laughable. But that's why they keep throwing around the term bipartisan. Yes, Speaker Johnson forced that hand, painted people into a corner by by being able to call it bipartisan. And that's why his odds, which we'll talk about probably in the next hour, his odds of being speaker again on January 3rd have plummeted. Never say never, but he's got a lot of work to do to ease people's minds. Again, many Republicans, it is being said, voted against yesterday's spending bill in a protest vote against the speaker. Musk wrote in one of the dozens of posts railing against the original continuing resolution, shutting down the government, which doesn't actually shut down critical functions, by the way, is infinitely better than passing a horrible bill. No bill should be passed by Congress until Trump takes office on January 20th. Interesting. Vice President J.D. Vance released a joint statement from himself and Trump demanding a streamlined spending bill. We went through all of this yesterday. Now, again, Newsweek is presenting it and so many others as Musk is now the president. That is not the case. It is the same talking point used back with Dick Cheney, who Democrats now love. But now they are projecting, again, it's a broken record. They're all saying the same thing because they got the talking points. And so now the media is using those talking points as they are wont to do. Senator Bernie Sanders on X saying, the U.S. Congress this week came to an agreement to fund our government. Elon Musk, who became $200 billion richer since Trump was elected, objected. Are Republicans beholden to the American people or President Musk? This is oligarchy at work. The American people, in my mind, knew what they were voting for, and this is the kind of thing they were voting for, not 100 or 1,500 and some odd pages of a government spending bill that included so many things that had nothing to do with keeping the government open. I'm sorry, I do believe that's something that they did vote for in that landslide victory for President-elect Trump. Former GOP Representative Adam Kinzinger, the only reason that his name is relevant, because he's a former representative, only reason he is relevant in getting time here on Newsweek and on CNN is because he is a Republican who does everything to try to hurt Republicans. To circle back from a little bit earlier in the show, he is a Republican who has been attacking Trump, so that's pretty good payday. Ask Liz Cheney. Ask Chris Christie. Ask Mitt Romney. The people that get the attention from the media because they want to be liked so bad. They want to be liked by the quote-unquote cool kids and get invited to the cool cocktail parties. Those people know that if they have an R next to their name but continue to attack and demean Republicans and specifically Trump, they will get attention from that media that they crave so badly. They crave so badly to be liked. Adam Kinzinger saying, President Musk this morning made it clear, with all his vast government experience, which is basically he became rich on the federal government, that he doesn't want Republicans to pass this. And seemingly Vice President Trump kind of backed him up at this point. Do you see how really pathetic it gets? I mean, it's name calling at its lowest, I guess. Not lowest, but at its simplest. And what it says about the politics is this is going to be a messy 4 years. Now, Adam Kinzinger, no way, shape, or form relevant to the conversation, because let me say it again, former GOP Representative Adam Kinzinger, who was not that powerful in his time in the House, but did the great career move of attacking Trump. So now we are to look to him as the Rosetta Stone of what to do in Washington. He added that Trump wants the debt ceiling to go up so he can blame the Democrats, but he's hopeful that the government won't shut down. I don't think they'll shut the government down because ultimately they'll want to get home for Christmas. They'll do like a 1 month CR, pretend like that's going to fix everything, but I think President Elon has made it clear what his agenda is going to be for the next 4 years. So just think about that, how pathetic this is at its face value. Former Representative Adam Kinzinger, in one quick kind of I guess you could call it a paragraph, saying some form of President Musk or Vice President Trump 3 times. You know when they say you go back to the well one too many times with perhaps a joke? We're starting to see that already, and it has been not even close to 24 hours. I've got a couple of other examples, but we've got to take another short break. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. I got some comments coming in. We'll read them at the top of the hour because I am running late this morning. I wanted to wrap up the discussion about, not the complete discussion, but the talking point, which somehow in my mind became cliche and corny within an hour or two, which is that Musk is president and Trump is vice president. Democrat Representative Pramil Jayapal said on X, "It's clear who's in charge, and it's not President-elect Donald Trump." Shadow President Elon Musk spent all day rallying against Republicans' continuing resolution, succeeded in killing the bill, and then Trump decided to follow his lead. Well, isn't when you put somebody in charge of government efficiency and they rally against a spending bill, which is what is happening here, now that means that Trump is following his lead? Well, I would think that's a good thing from an agency, not a government agency, but essentially a consultant agency, making suggestions type of group, which is Doge. And I would also say that it was Vivek Ramaswamy really came out forcefully against this as well. So this whole talking point is very, very old. Democrat Representative Kevin Goldman told MSNBC, "It's not Donald Trump asking for this. It's very clearly President Elon Musk asking for this. The fact that Donald Trump has been completely AWOL during these negotiations to the point where Elon Musk publicly tweets out his displeasure about the budget deal. All of a sudden, Donald Trump, chief of staff to Elon Musk," oh, so now he's not even vice president, chief of staff to Elon Musk, "comes trotting in and blows up the deal." And let's be very clear. This means that what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing is likely at this point to shut the government down over Christmas. As the shadow president-elect, okay, so sometimes you throw shadow at the beginning, sometimes you don't. Elon Musk is now calling the shots for House R's on government funding, while Trump hides in Mar-a-Lago behind his handlers. It increasingly seems like we're in for 4 years of an unelected oligarch running the country by pulling on his puppet strings. Wow, it's interesting that they're concerned about a puppet and strings being pulled, isn't it? After the last 4 years, when we learned from the Wall Street Journal today that the White House knew about Biden's mental decline starting on day one, which we're going to talk about in the next hour as well. But so many hilarious points there by Mr. Goldman in the sense that he thinks that you are going to, I don't even know what, lose sleep over this holiday season that the government shut down over Christmas when it's not essential employees. But again, a little bit more on this, and I just want to, listen, they've already beat it to death. They've already went to the well one too many times with the President Musk, but this will be the next 4 years or however long Musk stays in Doge, because they thought it worked with Cheney, even though they love Cheney now. They're going to keep pushing that because they think it's funny, they think it's clever, and they think it's got an impact. Does it have an impact to you? We're also going to read your comments when we come back. I'm running late. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. As you can see, we're getting a little snow out there. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, this is not our Christmas episode. I would say our Christmas episode was probably the telethon, but we still have one more show before the small Christmas break. And that'll be on Monday. But we got a lot of great comments. Now, if you're just tuning into the show, we had a very conservative Republican reach out and suggest that my show is a joke and that Democrats are always bad and Republicans are good no matter what, even though obviously there's been a lot of criticism of Republicans and their stances like Mike Johnson. But anyway, I'm not going to go belabor this. But this viewer went on to say my show is the best comedy show they've ever watched, which I'm still going to take as a compliment. And to be fair, they did say first Merry Christmas, so Merry Christmas again. I'm a Republican, good conservative Republican, but I vote for who I think is better. I'm concerned about all the nominations. Trump only wants yes people. Yeah, it bothers me that he only wants yes people and loyal people. I look back at the days of, with Joe Biden picking people that obviously disliked him and had different opinions on, the people that Biden called garbage, people that had ideas like Trump when he hired all those people around him. Okay, so I bring that up not to belabor, I appreciate everybody's comments. Keep those comments in. I read them all. That's why we're going through this. I love it. But I read it because I know that was earlier in the 6 o'clock hour. Some may not have seen it, but some other viewers are commenting on it. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Now that you're a comedian and you should move your show to late nights. I have a TV, so I know when comedians are supposed to be on. Yes, and hey, listen, late nights not where it's at anymore, unless you're, I think, Gov't. Especially much like MSNBC, they were so against Trump. Now that the elections are over, people are tuning out. The late night comedy shows just unfortunately aren't what they used to be. They're political. Now, I will say, I watch a lot of Johnny Carson reruns. There's political aspects to it, but it was on all sides. It was picking on everybody. This is, watch Jimmy Kimmel the night after the election or Stephen Colbert. They didn't hide the fact. And it was all about me. My feelings are the most important too, but it was very much, not hiding the bias. So good point. Sometimes this feels like late night television when we start at 6 a.m. But yes, I understand the actual time frame for late night shows. Next up, first of all, Merry Christmas, and Merry Christmas to you too. I believe Trump surrounded himself with a great team for success for this country. To your point with Elon Musk, I think this is what the American people voted for. They voted for Donald Trump to pick people around him and himself to do it that were going to get the government in order. And I think Mike Johnson's biggest mistake was not recognizing that Trump's first day didn't start January 20th. It started on November 5th. And I feel bad for Mike Johnson because of that unforced error, as they use that term so often in Washington, overused. So yes, I think this is what people voted for. So that's what the Democrats are fearing. Now, keep in mind, they just lost a landslide election. And so to already be hitting with these talking points, realizing that they don't have anything really coming up for 4 years, is kind of interesting. That is President Musk. They're trying to lay the groundwork early to hope that sticks. Fine, but really that what the American people, the voters, said is, yeah, I wanted him to clean up. Isn't that what Doge is all about? I wanted him to point to spending bills like this that maybe I wasn't paying attention to, that all of a sudden has 1,500 pages and has so much that has absolutely nothing to do with the government staying open. That's what they wanted. So maybe it works. Maybe in their mind it'll work. There'll be bumper stickers, and they'll beat a dead horse. They'll go to the well. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey. Good morning and Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everyone this morning. I don't think most people want to be out of work, but over the years, I know of many people who were laid off right before Christmas. Workers I would consider essential, and nobody seemed to care about them. Many who were blindsided and didn't get paid if called back. That is an important point, and I want to bring this up yet again. These non-essential employees that will, if there is a government shutdown, that will stay home, that will not go into work during the government shutdown. When the government shutdown inevitably ends and they get back after that layoff, they will be paid for the time that they were off. Keep that in mind. So that is a very good point. And I continue with this viewer's comment. I don't think enough emphasis is placed on the need for personal responsibility to save for the unexpected emergencies. But guess that's old school though. Yeah. Have you ever heard of credit cards? No, you're exactly right. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but especially around this time of year, people, the media will come out with these articles that say, how much percentage, and it's usually quite a majority, are living paycheck to paycheck. Heaven forbid, one emergency would drain their bank account. So you raise a very good point. And I do, unfortunately, think that is an old school thought. And that shouldn't be the case. So yes, the new funny talking point is President Musk. Well, Whoopi Goldberg loved it. She thought it was hilarious, so she went with it. And let's just say went a little too far. This was on The View. Because they're so giddy that they think they found something that's going to hurt Trump. Because as they know, and Trump has joked about himself, specifically with Bobby Kennedy, don't get too popular. The theory always was if someone outshines Trump, he gets rid of him. I don't buy that totally. But they think this President Musk does twofold, that it demeans Trump, which Trump doesn't like, but demeans Trump and suggests that Trump isn't really the president. I think that doesn't work as much because obviously he was president for 4 years and did a great job. So I don't think that necessarily works, but it also is name calling, of course. You've got that level to it that they think will get under Trump's skin. But they also just love these, I don't know what, like easy go-to lines, these talking points. So it works on a bunch of different levels. It hurts Trump. It may knock Musk out because he's becoming too popular. It may cause him to, meaning Trump, to oust Musk. I think they just think it's a winning attitude, and Whoopi Goldberg thought it was, and she got really excited, and she went too far. Who is in charge, Goldberg said, because I've been saying it for a while. She wants to make sure that people know. She didn't get these talking points from the Democrats. I've been saying it. I think Elon Musk believes he's president. I do. I've called him vice president. I've called him president because I don't know what JD is doing. I don't remember the last time we even talked about JD. Well, I disagree. He had quite a few great statements. I know his co-statements is probably pretty typical. I think that J.D. Vance is doing a wonderful job behind the scenes. Look, he met with Mike Johnson yesterday. Just because Whoopi Goldberg doesn't talk about him doesn't mean he's disappeared. But and just because the media has been fascinated by Musk and covers him extensively, again, doesn't mean JD's disappeared. This is another attempt to try to maybe downplay JD, knowing that he is the heir apparent to MAGA before 2028. So the View co-host, Joy Behar, then chimed in saying, Vance, he's planning the presidency when they get rid of Trump. Get rid of Trump? What does that mean? Looking surprised, Goldberg then asked Behar, you think it's Musk Vance? Alluding to a theoretical presidential ticket with Musk at the top. Possible. Political pundit, Joy Behar said. Goldberg said, hey, you know who? Trump, stay away from the stairwells. Because, people put their legs out to trip you down the stairs. Watch out. And boy, the audience went crazy. There was laughs. There was clapping. Potentially worried about the joke being misconstrued and receiving a call from Secret Service, Goldberg attempted to walk back the joke after a commercial break. Maybe someone got to her ear. I need to clean something up. My cat lays in wait for me on my stairs all the time. That's what I was referring to. I was thinking of that. I wasn't trying to indicate that they were actually standing there with their legs out, hoping he would trip. Sonny Hoiston, again, trying to stop the bleeding, saying nobody wants anything done to the president. It was lighthearted, Goldberg said, and it's the holidays. Come on. My goodness. So apparently somebody got to her and said, let's clean that up. You did not mean that anybody should hurt the president. Hoiston weighed in again. No, Goldberg said. The thing about this show, there's no way not to step in poo. There's no way to do it. There's no way not to do it. So there you go. CNN's Acosta went further, saying that Elon Musk is spreading fake news. And if you are just joining us, I would love to hear your thoughts on a couple things. I start off the program with a few of these. First, your reactions to the Wall Street Journal that we're going to get to here in a little bit, but that piece about that the White House knew Joe Biden. It's nice that the media covers this stuff now after the election, but the Joe Biden, his mental decline was known since day one. Even Chris Cillizza from CNN saying, I should have been more forthcoming on it. Well, remember, who was it? Chuck Todd saying after the debate, oh, yeah, I had senior people tell me Biden's been bad for a while. After Biden, they were trying to push him out. So the damage already done. The scandal's already happened. And now Chuck Todd looked at it as a positive. They should have been reporting on it since day one. They did not. So Chris Cillizza saying, I should have done better. But your thoughts on that? It's 15 pages from the Wall Street Journal. Highly recommended. Also, this thought that we may have an opportunity to get to, that the Democrat Party is now the Fettermans versus the AOCs in leadership positions and in just governing. Now, I know we've got senator versus congresswoman, but they're not saying it that way. Fetterman more level-headed in the sense that he is pro-Israel. He's willing to listen to Trump, willing to look at his nominees, willing to have the conversations that Democrats aren't normally willing to have, where AOC is self-proclaimed, I think, hard left. Also looking for leadership positions in the House, but Pelosi trying to quash that and ultimately did quash that. So your thoughts on that as well, and about the continuing resolution or the spending bill that was voted down yesterday. Many people suggesting that Republicans the Republicans that did vote against it knew it was doomed from the beginning, so they voted in protest of Speaker Johnson. Do you think Speaker Johnson has any chance whatsoever of being Speaker again? on January 3rd. Now, if you would have asked me before this continuing resolution on Wednesday, I would have said, yeah, I think he's got it. He seems to be doing good. I would have acknowledged that the spending bill does make it very difficult. But having said that, yeah, I would have thought he had it. Today, I do not think that. I think the safe money for most people are going against Johnson not getting it. Do you agree, disagree? Your thoughts on it in general. Stay with us. We got to take our first break of hour number 2, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Give me 1 second here. Don't worry, I know we're on. I had to finish up something here looking at all these comments. Thank you to Boss Security and Horseheads for the roof cam. You see the snow on the ground, so be careful on your way into school and your way into work this morning. Just a light dusting, but beautiful view. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So many comments coming in. We're going to get those in a second, but don't forget, as we enter this Christmas week and going into New Year's, as they say here, I felt like I had a frog in my throat here for a second. Let's get ready to crumble. It is the final days of the Gingerbread Invitational with our friends at the Rockwell Museum. They're inviting families, art lovers, holiday enthusiasts to celebrate the magic of the season with the 10th annual Gingerbread Invitational. All visitors are encouraged to vote for the coveted belt, if it were actually boxing, the Community Choice Award. Very big deal to win that. They have beautiful, I've been quite a few times, not this year alone, but quite a few times. Amazing gingerbread houses. What people can do, God bless them. I don't know how. I would have no idea how to even begin. But the exhibit is on view through December 31st of 2024, so to the end of the year. So you still have an opportunity to vote and to see the gingerbread houses. The museum is open daily, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So if you have a little time off for the Christmas holidays, you may have an opportunity. You should take the opportunity to see the final days of the Gingerbread Invitational at the Rockwell Museum. Okay. Wow, a lot of comments coming in. And we are going to move on from the continuing resolution here, but if you want to continue to talk about it, I'd love to. I find this fascinating. There was a time when, especially early days of radio, my early days of radio, that I don't think there would be much discussion on a continuing resolution. I joked with somebody yesterday. Most people shouldn't know what a continuing resolution is. I mean, they should, but what I'm saying is it's so wonky. It's so in the weeds, that term, and the whole process, that I love it. I think it's such a good thing for democracy that we're having these kind of conversations, in-depth conversations about what really does affect you. For instance, the continuing resolution that failed, that had billions, I should say, dollars of pork in it that was unnecessary to keep the government open. We should know that, especially after what was decided in November decisively. We should know that. We should know the things that they're voting for. As to the one viewer who said it yesterday, who's celebrating a birthday, 75th birthday tomorrow, again, happy birthday, saying no longer this vote on it and we'll find out what's in it. That's what November meant. But let's go to viewer comments. Maybe the non-essential employees should have to use their vacation time, which is what? Don't they get a month off each year? Plus, they also get around 12 paid holidays off per year. I will say, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will. Yeah, why not? As many of you know, I've mentioned on the program before, I worked for the United States House of Representatives for a while, and I don't remember how many holidays we received, how many days off for holidays. I will say, though, probably in my first, and it could have just been the timing of when I started working, but my first 4 months there, I probably had more vacation time than I had in 16 years in radio. I don't know if that speaks to the government or speaks to radio, but yes, there are a lot of holidays when it comes to government employees, and I don't know how many vacation days they get. That I don't know, but a month would not surprise me. And remember, again, they're going to get paid for this. At the end of the day, yes, they're going to say, you want the government to shut down at Christmas? Think of all those families. At the end of the day, they are going to get paid for what is essentially not working because it's this temporary layoff. So thank you for that. Next up, in my opinion, we had no president for 4 years. He was a puppet. ran by the Democratic Party. Now we are getting 2 presidents, LOL. 2 minds are better than 1. I think that's a good way of looking at it. I would say 3 presidents. I know the media, and keep this in mind, I'm going to say, I don't mean this in any derogatory way, but don't be duped by this. They are going to downplay J.D. Vance's impact because they know J.D. Vance is the heir apparent in 2028, as of right now. So you are going to see a lot of coverage of Musk. You're going to see a lot of talks of President Musk. You're not going to get a lot of talk about J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance was instrumental in having a conversation with Johnson, getting that bill, though it ultimately failed, but getting that spending bill that was more acceptable, and it should have really been accepted by Republicans. So keep that in mind. So I think it's actually, if I could, it's 3 presidents. But it may be more than that. Ramaswamy, I know there is 1 president, and that's Donald Trump. At the end of the day, he's making the decisions because you've seen that firsthand. We go, where did that come from? That had to come from Trump in a good way. But the people, that's why the other viewer said it, and so many people have said it, he picked such good people around him. And that's one of the reasons why people are excited about his election, because it's not, you had Democrats voting for him because they saw how bad Harris was, and they said, you know what, I like that Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. are joining up with Trump because they want to make America great again. I like that they want to bring the economy back. They want to bring peace back. So I think from the beginning, whether it was on the campaign trail, well, let's go all the way to when he picked J.D. Vance. A surprise to so many of us. Some people were kind of worried, not knowing a lot about him, concerned because at times he sounded in the way past that he was anti-Trump. And then he came out and said, yeah, I got duped by the media like so many others until I met the guy, until I learned about the guy. So making a great pick with J.D. Vance, making the great pick of, and it's not a government agency, but with Doge, with Musk and Ramaswamy, making these picks around him that are unorthodox. But that's what Trump sees. And at the end of the day, he made those decisions. He sees these are the people that are going to make a difference. And this continuing resolution proves it. With Musk helping to shut it down. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg and others in the media acting shocked that he had some say in it. That's what Doge was all about. Weed out all this waste, fraud, and corruption. And Musk just did it early. I don't know what they're expecting, but because he made that suggestion, which is Doge's job, now they're trying to demean Trump. And also they're hoping Trump will say, wow, Musk is getting too popular enough. That's why they call him President Musk. Okay, sounded like a broken record. I know I've already said that a couple times. Comment from Ken. Hey, Ken. I actually consider myself a conservative independent, and I'm not registered with any party. I will always support a candidate that has a platform that mirrors the majority of my views. Since I started paying attention to politics in the late 70s, I have not seen a Democrat that has a platform even close to my views for the direction of this country. I have voted many times for a candidate, local, state, and federal, that I didn't personally like, but was comfortable with where they wanted to take the country. As far as I'm concerned, frankly speaking, reports on and holds discussions about the political world that is fair and balanced. Thank you. I agree with that, Ken. All you need to do is watch the legacy media to see what unfair and unbalanced looks like. Side note, you're exactly right, Ken. Watch this Sunday. Wait till you see the Sunday shows. I kick myself. I would never watch them. I made it a point that Sunday was a day off from politics. And I think it was because I was so fascinated about how good J.D. Vance handled it, how good Mike Johnson was handling it, how good Tom Cotton was handling it, that I got kind of hooked on it. I wouldn't watch the whole show, but you're right, Ken. Watch the legacy media and you'll see what unfair and unbalanced looks like. Frankly speaking, is fair and balanced. I appreciate that. Ken wraps up with, the only change I would make to your show is making it a 7 to 9 show for us old guys. I like that idea, Ken. Trust me, that sounds much more appealing than the alarm going off at 3:30 in the morning. So I understand, but I think for those, I understand, but for those who work, maybe we'll just try to see if we can get to the full 3. How's that? Like the old days. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. We're having a blast this morning. We have other comments coming in. We'll get to those at the end, at the next break. So yes, again, Elon Musk, hated by the media. And that's why I love what Rand Paul did yesterday. Rand Paul suggested that Elon Musk should be Speaker of the House. Now, before you get too excited, this happens almost every go-around, especially with Republicans. It seems to be more of a Republican thing because the Democrats do such a good job of railing around who they want to be Speaker. It's always going to be Pelosi, or it's always, Hakeem Jeffries will have it for as long as he wants it, most likely, because Nancy lost on a few times, and they still kept putting her in. So, again, they're good at it, but Republicans always do this kind of, and it's fun, mind game where it's, technically, the speaker does not have to be an elected member of Congress. So in years past, people have said, why don't we bring Newt back? Have it be Newt Gingrich, and that happens every couple of years when the Republicans are obviously in the majority, and they'll throw around other names. I think in 2020, when they won the majority, they started talking about let's put Trump in there. These type of things. So Rand Paul suggesting Elon Musk as House Speaker. He was kind of poking the bear of the media, right? The Speaker of the House need not be a member of Congress. Nothing would disrupt the swamp more than electing Elon Musk. Think about it. Nothing's impossible. Not to mention the joy at seeing the collective establishment, aka Uniparty, lose their ever-loving minds. Marjorie Taylor Greene echoing, I'd be open to supporting Elon Musk for Speaker of the House. Doge can only truly be accomplished by reining in Congress to enact real government efficiency. The establishment needs to be shattered just like it was yesterday. This could be the way. Doge, people have asked me, Department of Government Efficiency is what that is. Several Democrats criticized Musk and claimed he, not Trump, was driving the president-elect's position. Thank you to the Hill for that brilliant statement. Putting Elon Musk, if nothing else, I like that Rand Paul did it just to worry people that haven't been through this before and realize that it never really happens. It could. I'm never say never. It never really happens, but the talk of it just infuriates the media and the talking heads. All right, we got to take a break. Keep those comments coming in. Having a great time this morning. Really appreciate it. And we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. Loving the music. Thank you again to Boss Security. Quite a bit of snow since the show started. Be careful out there. Thank you again to Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple of great comments here. Let's get back to it. This has been a great week of comments. Every week is a great week of comments before anybody gets mad. But I'm just saying we have had some lively discussions over the continuing resolution. I can't thank you enough. This coming from our friend Fred. Fred says, good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. It is refreshing to see that the federal government is finally responding to the wishes of the voters. Good point. It is a really bad look for Speaker Johnson to shadow President Trump around the country and then put a business-as-usual 1,500-page spending bill forward, supposedly without Trump or Elon knowing about it. And I think this is an interesting take from Fred. I don't believe that story for a moment. I think it was a litmus test to search out rhino Republicans and troll the media and Democrats to act exactly as they are with their name calling. After all, we did end up exactly where we should thanks to Johnson, Trump, Musk, that tag team. I gotta throw JD Vance in there. Everybody's forgetting about Vance. But Fred, I think that's a very interesting take on that. Time will tell. But at the end of the day, they always pretend that a government shutdown, when I say they, the media, suggests that a government shutdown is going to be the end of the world and the American people are going to revolt against Republicans. Didn't November show that the American people are actually pretty sick of Washington and the bureaucrats and the quote-unquote swamp that Rand Paul was talking about? So I don't think it has the impact, though you see from the talking points, the talking heads, that's the narrative that is going to come forward in these next few days. A comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Just so you know, your news program, Frankly Speaking, is the only one I can stomach. Please keep up the great work you do. Well, hey, isn't that nice on this Friday morning? Thank you very much. And a comment from a different viewer on a different note. Where are we going? Did you see... Oh, yeah, those people in New York carrying signs that say to free the CEO murderer. Yes, dressed up as the video game character Luigi, because, of course, his name is Luigi. A couple, and a lot of people, and they got a lot of attention. The media wanted to point to them saying horrible things in those interviews. He said, as far as I can see it, Luigi killed one person, but health insurance companies destroyed millions of lives every year. The sign saying, "Free Luigi." At least a CEO that's specifically making profits off the well-being of other humans, where the only way they're making money is taking money by denying claims that they're supposed to pay out. And this is what the name of the person was Merrill, with these protest signs saying, as far as I see it, Luigi killed one person, but health insurance companies destroy millions of lives every year. Then, not wanting to get in trouble, I don't believe that murder is okay. I do not condone violence. I do not want to live in a society, though, where it's eye for an eye. But when there is no recourse, there is no viable alternative. And you're going to say, that is shocking. But wasn't it interesting that Senator Elizabeth Warren really echoed similar statements saying people can only be pushed so far? So much like the anti-Semitism on college campuses that we've been talking about, this radicalization continues to grow and grow and grow. And I don't blame this necessarily on college campuses, though I believe Luigi was at school or had just recently graduated. And there is a piece talking directly about that from, where is it? Maximilian Mayer, who writes for the New York Post quite frequently, saying, I'm an Ivy League undergrad, and my campus sides with Luigi Mangione. The Emerson College poll found 41% of voters aged 18 to 29 saw Thompson's murder as acceptable. 41% saying it's acceptable. So this again points to the radicalization. So thank you to the viewer for bringing that up. And we're going to get back to the continuing resolution in a moment. And we got to get to that story about Biden. But yes, this is about that radicalization. That's why so many people are turning against colleges and going to the trades and elsewhere, because they see, wait, I'm going to get in debt and be radicalized. I'm going to be anti-Semitic, or maybe not get a job because there was anti-Semitic protests at my school, and the employer doesn't want to, when they see the school I went to, doesn't even want the hassle of looking to see if I was part of those protests. And I'm going to be that much in debt, or I can start right off out of high school with a good paying job, a consistent job. So yes, this radicalization is getting more and more. So thank you for pointing that out and letting me change topics for just a moment. Rich Lowry says this budget revolt is a hopeful sign of fiscal sanity, but we've got to remember it's just a start. Johnson made a misstep, this Rich Lowry, with a so-called continuing resolution to keep the government funded past a looming deadline. He added Republican priorities, and then to placate the Democrats who control the Senate and the White House, added Democrat priorities. What was supposed to be a stopgap measure to avoid a government shutdown became a vehicle to pass new legislation in a last-minute 1,500-page bill that no one was going to read. And what he says, and I think this is a really interesting point that Mr. Lowry makes, is this revolt reminds him of the Tea Party Republicans that roiled the establishment, much to the chagrin of, remember, John Bolton, who had to deal with them, and he was more of a what we would consider now a rhino Republican. But the Tea Party was the start of this. And I know many people have pointed to the Tea Party's biggest success would be the election of Donald Trump, which I think is an interesting point. And that's the point Rich Lowry is, not specifically, but he's making, that this revolt against the continuing resolution that we've talked about now for 2 days is the signs from the Tea Party, that is that group continuing to still have influence in power, even if we didn't know it. And there's not the meetings and the protests behind the scenes. It's just that belief in their heart. Your thoughts on that? Because I know many people were involved in those Tea Party protests at the time, holding quite large ones, even here in places like Corning. So he says that reflex that the Tea Party has now taken a new form. It is expressed in fierce opposition to the swamp. In this case, business as usual, log rolling in Congress, and excitement about the prospects of Musk's, I want to throw in Ramaswamy there too, but Musk's and Ramaswamy's DOGE, the new Department of Government Efficiency. The bipartisan agreement in Washington to perpetually spend more money is indeed disgraceful, and DOGE could be a welcome force for new thinking and change. And I can't imagine, as they try to send that kind of fear-mongering that the government's going to shut down over Christmas and this is what's happening, was anybody, was there a party that was saying, you know what, I think it's about time those men and women in Washington got a raise? Because that was one of the provisions in the 1,500-page continuing resolution, and a lot of pork spending. So are there people saying, yeah, they should get all that through? How dare Musk affect this? But now Fred believes, who wrote in just a little while ago, that this is all kind of a litmus test, and that Johnson is here to stay. I don't know what to think about it, Fred, or just in general. But according to some, Trump is beginning to move against Johnson. Trump told NBC News' Garrett Hawk, when asked about his confidence in Johnson, he said, "We'll see. What they had yesterday was unacceptable. In many ways, it was unacceptable. It's a Democrat trap." Then Trump said Johnson will easily remain Speaker if he acts decisively and tough and eliminates all the traps being set by Democrats in the spending package. So kind of a bit back and forth, and that spending package he put forth yesterday was 116 pages. It was a very good first step. Democrats and some Republicans who were doing it in protest of Mike Johnson, killing that bill. Newsweek, so take it with a grain of salt, is suggesting that Mike Johnson's hopes of remaining House Speaker has nosedived. Tom Massey said, "I'll vote for somebody else, not Johnson, on January 3rd. I've got a few in mind I'm not going to say yet." Boy, he was close. Campaigning around the country with Trump. So if he ultimately doesn't get it, he was close. He was in a couple of days, right? Well, January 3rd, not that far away from being Speaker again. I don't know who else would be up. I don't know who they would be looking at. But they're saying this has been handled horribly. So his chances nosediving. All right, we've been talking about this all morning, but kind of just around the peripheral. And that is Biden. Now, I've got to take a break because I just saw the time. But when we come back, we've got one quick thing about Harris, and then we're going to talk about this expose that's making the rounds from the Wall Street Journal. If you have not seen it yet, about 15 pages, well worth the read. It suggests that the White House knew, and thanks to the media for bringing this up well after the election, but the White House knew about Biden's mental decline since day one. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful Christmassy feeling to the roof cam this morning with the snow hitting the grounds. Feels like Christmas time, doesn't it, with that great music as well. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You're watching Frankly Speaking. One quick thing about Harrison. This came out yesterday on Fox, and it's a DNC fundraiser. Lindy Lee. They asked her, and an important DNC fundraiser, Lindy Lee. She was asked about this buzz that Vice President Harris is going to run again run for either California for the gubernatorial race in 2026 or in 2028 for a chance again at the president, running for president. This is what Lindy Lee had to say. Quote, "This is not what Americans want. November 5th was a decisive defeat for the Democrat Party. She lost every single swing state. It wasn't a squeaker like it was in 2016. This was a resounding defeat, and right now, Kamala Harris is indulging in delusions of running for governor of California, possibly in 2026 or even president again in 2028. America has said, quote, we don't want to be coconut." Well, what was that word? And I coconut pilled, because she kept talking about coconut tree or whatever. "We do not want Kamala Harris. We don't want failed border policies, and I feel like I'm liberated, and I can finally tell the truth that the Democrats completely failed on the border." She went on to say that the Democrat Party was plagued by the stench of loser. "I lost tens of thousands of followers because I dared to tell the truth, because in a cult, you can't tell the truth. You can't ask any questions, but I'm done with that." This again, DNC fundraiser Lindy Lee. She said, "I'm probably going to get canceled again for what I'm about to say, that men are men and women are women, and it's an issue when men are trouncing women in women's sports. This should not be a controversial take. This is common sense, and the American people understand that the Democrat Party, they exist in their ivory towers that are so far removed from reality, and these ridiculous culture wars are not what Americans care about. They care about bread and butter issues. We care about putting food on the table, sending our kids to school, strong borders, not having millions of people rush to the border. And I'm a naturalized immigrant myself. Just because you care about these issues doesn't make you sexist and racist. So that's DNC fundraiser. Lindy Lee speaking on Fox News. So this is, again, like some comments coming in. I appreciate it. And I got to take another short break. All right, when we come back, as promised, the Wall Street Journal and that expose, how the White House functioned with a diminished Biden in charge. It's about 15 pages. I think I got it linked from Drudge Report, but you can go right to the Wall Street Journal. We're going to talk about it and get your take on it. Get these last-minute opinions in, last-minute comments in, because we're just about ready to wrap up the show. Only 15 minutes left. Hard to believe. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So this is coming from the Wall Street Journal. And what they found in this expose, and I'll try to do the names to give credit where credit's due: Annie Linsky, Rebecca Ballas, Emily Glazer, and Saboin Hughes, that aides kept meetings short, and controlled access. Top advisors acted as go-betweens, and public interactions became more scripted. The administration denied Biden had declined. And remember, in what is one of the biggest presidential scandals in history, the media covered this up for 3.5 years. They also had people like Harris and Pelosi and others saying that, no, he's great, he's healthy, he could run. Remember, that we were told, as a matter of fact, who was it that said it? We were told that, here it is, the New York Times, saying videos of President Biden are clearly manipulated to make him look old and confused. That was as recently as June 21st. Now, in Tuesday's edition of the New York Times, it is hard to imagine that he seriously thought he could do the world's most stressful job for another 4 years. So now they are trying to blame him when Harris knew, when Pelosi knew, the media knew, because the media was around him. So maybe he should have dropped out, but they can't be a yes person around him 24/7 to hide any bad news, hide anything about his health, and then not expect him to think that he can run for a second term. Now, White House aides covered up Biden's apparent mental decline from day one of his presidency, shielding the aging commander-in-chief from the public and even rearranging his schedule after scatterbrained performances. The lack of access to the nation's oldest ever president has been well known in Washington, with Biden hosting the fewest large press conferences in modern history and frequently descending into gaffes at the podium when he appeared. But how much the White House made up for this haziness had until now been hidden. But Democrat lawmakers and donors finally spoke to the Wall Street Journal. Presidential staff formed a tight shell around Biden right after he took office amid the COVID-19 pandemic, with staff immediately limiting his in-person interactions in January of 2021. And keep in mind, so when they talk about puppet and suggesting that Elon Musk is a puppet to Trump, which is laughable, is a puppet for Trump. Let me word that again, that Trump is a puppet for Elon. They have been fine with this kind of puppet mentality for 3.5 years, according to this report from the Wall Street Journal. Staffers also began making adjustments to daily plans when the president appeared tired or kept stumbling on the world stage, both figuratively and literally stumbling. By spring of 2021, meetings were being rescheduled to accommodate for his good and bad days. Remember, that became known where we learned, what was it, there was a 6-hour or 8-hour window where he was good, and we learned that, which was pretty troubling at the time. According to the Journal, Wall Street Journal, a national security official told an aide at the time, he has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this issue, whatever that issue was, tomorrow. Meeting with, sorry, I got something down there. Hit me. Meetings were often scheduled for later in the day, a fact first disclosed after Biden's debate flop against Trump, when staff admitted that the then Democrat nominee had difficulty functioning outside a 6-hour, that's what it was, a 6-hour window that closed around 4 p.m. So he was done for the day around 4 p.m. Once inside the room with the president, officials were instructed to make their briefings short and to the point. Private discussions were with even some of his top cabinet picks, including Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. They grew more infrequent over time. Some basically throwing up their hands and saying there's no sense. Stopped even reaching out to schedule a talk, one cabinet member, because they found no need in it because nothing was going to happen. The White House also hired a voice coach, Hollywood mogul and campaign co-chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg, to try to improve his faint, raspy tone. Other staffers removed negative reports, this is an important point, from Biden's stack of news for the day, misleading him about the public's opinion of his job performance, which reached a 70-year low in 2024, a 70-year low, and they kept that from him. So why wouldn't he think he should be able to run for president when people were telling him he was, and then in the media were saying it? Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates disputed the characterization. President Biden speaks with members of his cabinet daily, and with most members multiple times a week, staying close with them about implementation of key laws and strengthening our national security. So we're giving you both sides here, folks. President Biden leads a modern administration. Cabinet meetings are an important tradition, but the contemporary work environment means they can be fewer and farther between. The president's sit down with special counsel Robert Hur, if you remember, brought that into the limelight. That's when the media really went in full defense mode, saying, how dare he? He's just trying to affect the campaign. This is as bad as the charges on Hillary being brought back up, et cetera, et cetera. Then the debate happened. And I guess that, and with the transcript and everything, that was not good at the time. The Biden World source dismissed the president's hazy recall, saying every person who has ever prepared for a legal interview has forgotten some of the prep. Interesting piece, and I'd get your take on it. During Jill's husband's first term, the first lady even tried to stop him from going it alone for too long in a press conference, trying to cut in, drag him out of events. President Biden has earned the most accomplished record of any modern commander-in-chief and rebuilt the middle class because of his attention to policy details that impact millions of lives. His active solicitation of diverse opinions from outside experts, everyday Americans, members of Congress, and other elected officials, his cabinet and historians, and because of his determination to fulfill a big-picture economic agenda that realized major priorities Democrats have worked toward for decades, Bates added in a statement released after this expose from the Wall Street Journal. So there you go. We got to take our last break, then wrap things up. Get your comments in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you again to Boss Security in Horseheads. Visit them today for all your business and home security needs. They brought us this beautiful roof cam on this snowy morning. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer, and this is from Sergeant Dave. Morning, Frank. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Well, Sergeant Dave, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well. You've been a breath of fresh air. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think with Trump's administration, we're going just fine. It'll be like a resurgence of the Reagan era. I remember that and how things were so well. We need this again. Yeah, think about the Reagan era and the pride in the country. You're starting to feel some of that. I think it was Willie Robertson, of all people, just meaning maybe a name you haven't thought about in a while, from Duck Dynasty, saying it's actually become cool to like Trump. In 2016, you were still kind of an oddity. Now it's cool. You feel proud of it. You maybe wear some type of hat or, whatever the case may be. But there's also this idea that many are preparing for this kind of peace and prosperity. So it's a very good point. Thank you, Sergeant Dave. Chris Cillizza confesses he should have pushed harder on Biden's mental decline. I wonder why you didn't, Chris Cillizza, formerly from CNN. Is there an underlying reason? I mean, I guess if the shoe was on the other foot and that was a Republican, we don't have to name any specific Republican, would he have pushed harder on the issue of mental acuity? Question to ask. Speaking of the media, MSNBC reportedly offers Joy Reid and Stephanie Ruhle pay cuts to stay in the anchor chair. So it's almost as if you were paying to stay in the anchor's chair. The left-leaning news channel, MSNBC, which recently gave star anchor Rachel Maddow a $5 million a year haircut from her annual $30 million haul, has been negotiating with Reid and Ruhle on new deals at reduced salaries. The controversial Reid is believed to be earning $3 million a year to host her nightly 8 p.m. show. Ooh, so I wonder what kind of money we're looking at. Also, Disney renews George Stephanopoulos' contract with a pay cut, though, because they didn't want to have, quote, blood on their hands after that $16 million Trump settlement. No one wants a talent mess on their hands. No one wants an angry George Stephanopoulos loose in this world. No one wants to humiliate George by firing him or having their blood on his hands. And Neil Cavuto is leaving Fox News after 28 years. Entertainment and media suffers another major blow in 2024 with 15,000 job cuts. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for all the great comments, all the great discussion all week long. And good luck if you have to go out shopping. And we'll be back Monday morning with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We'll see you Monday morning at 6 a.m. I look forward to it already.